All right. Welcome, everyone. This week's Hoshinden Podcast. Dominic Hawkins here with you, joined with an awesome special guest this week, Paul Masse, straight out of Noda, ninja from Tokyo. Welcome, Paul.
Hello. I am straight out of Noda, Bora. I'm in the countryside over here. We had a big old earthquake which shook things up in Noda the other night. Maybe you saw that.
Whoa.
It was intense.
That's crazy.
It was like reminded me of the old days when, not the old days, but 2011 when we had that big one, boy. It was. Yeah. I was laying in bed, just thinking, another earthquake, problem, and then it keeps going, and really? I'm like, oh, that's a long one. And then it keeps going, like, oh, well, this could be, and I was like, whole house, jump out of bed, but everything was okay. This old house, man, it's an old house, right? It's made of wood, maybe, and it I don't know, maybe it's got a lot of flex in it because it was swaying. I'll tell you that.
Whoa! Did they used to build the houses like to kind of support or to be able to still stand after earthquake?
I don't know. I don't know. I don't think they did because only after a certain time frame, like I think 20 years ago is when it started, or 30 years ago. It's like these are earthquake resistant or something.
Gotcha.
But this has been standing for 60 years, and it's fine.
Yeah. And test it again.
Noda is also kind of like it's like a safe zone here. It's really weird. It's almost like a protected bubble here. Nothing ever happens in Noda. It's like we got the Bujin hovering over us here.
Totally.
There's no floods. There's no hurricanes. There's no this, that. We get a little bit of an earthquake now and again, but there's no tsunamis. There's no, Earth is not going to open up and swallow you here. So it's like we're okay here. It's weird,
That sounds like a place to be, actually.
Maybe the tanks of soy sauce will bust open and we'll get some soy sauce on our feet.
And the Kikkoman factory floods downtown.
It's just right down the street, So, but otherwise we're good, So
that's awesome.
Lucky.
I'm glad you're okay.
Straight out of Noda.
Thanks so much for joining me, man. Especially straight after your, near-death experience recently.
No problem.
So my guys, for the students who listen to this tonight, and those who are watching it on the YouTube channel for the podcast later, I've talked about you in class, chit-chatted. I talked about my adventures in Tokyo, and so you and I, we have great catch-ups when I'm there. I always appreciate. I think I've stayed in your guest houses twice over the time.
Yeah, it's been great. It's been great fun.
We've had great fun.
I think the first time you came here and we were training or something. I'm like, it's like a battery. It's like the tension in a battery. And you were like, what? And I'm like, what do you mean what? And he's like, I do batteries. I'm like, what?
That's an awesome metaphor for me. Yeah.
And this was before I was even. Now I'm totally into batteries. Now I'm like totally like Tesla batteries. I even know the chemical makeup of batteries now. And how did that happen? The battery production is going up and the cost is going down, and we're going to get sustainable energy. Boom.
Hey, you just reminded me. Remember, I mentioned I had a book for you.
Yeah.
This was I don't know. 3 years ago, I said, hey, there's a book I'll send you. And maybe I'll just post it to you. I think I mentioned it. I just saw it right then sitting on my shelf.
Harnessing the real work of nature, man. Oh, Tesla's Science of Energy. Awesome.
It's a great kick-ass book.
We are one end of the battery. Heaven is the other end of the battery. And what's flowing in between is just this energy, man. That's
totally it is. The Earth is one side of the capacitor. The ionosphere is the other.
That's right.
And then everything in between is the dielectric.
That's right.
Totally. That's like these books so much fun. He's got here's a kick-ass one for you. Although I won't post you this one. I'll just show you.
All right.
I pull it off my shelf.
Is it Shinga? Because I like Shinga too.
No, it's not. It's not Shinga. Shinga's cool. So this is all like Helmholtz. Okay, so now this one is a collection of Tesla's lab notes from the Colorado Springs from 1899 to 1900.
Wow. Okay.
And it's literally just someone's taken his notes and typed them, and they are insane. Like so insane. But
we need to run that through an AI program because no one's smart enough right now to figure that out.
You read through it and you're like, I got to read that again.
Neural network going on. And then,
But we get back to it. So, I mean, maybe we've jumped ahead slightly to philosophy. I was going to say, hey, we'll introduce you first, but bam, we hit the ground running.
Sorry.
But I just on that, I've always found that my love, my study of physics has just rolled into my love and study of martial arts. And it's done the same. I've been mid-technique in a class, and I've just had a lightning bolt moment where I've suddenly understood a function or an equation that was on my mind. And I was like, holy crap, this is exactly the same thing. Like, this is the triangle and the way the force is moving through space. I go home after the class and I fill out the rest of some paper that I've been half writing.
I get it, man. I think this Budo is a way of, it's sort of like this sort of I don't know, it's a blueprint that you can study all of nature through, you know.
Absolutely.
And yourself, right? You know, I'm part of that nature. So I've found it to be the same way. Just like, and somehow I don't even know how it's happening. I'm just studying this. I'm not even studying. I'm just doing it.
Yeah.
And it happens, right? I don't like to say study because I understand. I didn't really study.
You just
I
turned up.
It with him. You know, I just turned up and he was like, this is it, you know, and just like, you know, firing lightning bolts into us. And, you know, and so after a while, you're just, I don't know what happens, but it kind of washes away a lot of things and allows you to see things, you know.
Beautiful. And you just turn up. That's all you have to do, hey?
Yeah, all I do is turn up. Just gotta do is turn up and be near that, you know, generator.
Yeah.
You know, and it like, it just kind of like, I don't know, like it just shakes all the dust off you, right? You know, and you start to see stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, like that Shakti part.
It's not like, I can see this now. I'm cool or anything, or I'm ahead of the guy, or this. It doesn't. It's just like, oh wow, you know. I mean, this is nature, and this is our nature, and so it's not like, you know, you get like some people like in yoga they say, oh, I got the, you know, I do yoga, so I got these powers, you know.
The city
travel. I can see what you're thinking, and I can see in the dark now, and I can go look at you when you're in the shower. You know, you know. Because that's what happens if you get like caught up on like the powers that you sort of are given when you train, right? But if you just, those are natural things, you just don't worry about them. You just keep your eye like on yourself and on you know, on the training, and it's interesting that way.
I've always, like, so we're talking about city again, like I love that. I've seen that. I mean, I watched that in myself in martial arts, you know, play out, and I always know it's always the illusion. It's always when I've suddenly become distracted from my actual goal, which is just living.
That's right.
Now I'm off like.
Now you're all trying to like
be a god,
sit in lotus pose and float, you know. Like 20 years doing that, you're like, what the hell did I do that for?
Yeah, that's right. Damn it, that whole thing was a distraction.
Whole 20 years that was just Photoshop. That dude just Photoshopped himself. I believed it, you know. And that's the problem when you get wrapped up in those like ideas of cities or those special powers, you know. That's why I just say, you know, don't worry about this. You know, if for some reason, you know, it's already mystical enough. You know, you are the mystical thing. You are the mystical instrument. You're it. You know, just, you know. You just don't know it.
Yeah, totally. It's really just coming back into understanding of the way things always have been. Hey, because one of my meditation teachers way back when, she used to say to me, like, if you think that the goal is that you're ever going to achieve just like a continuous stream of single thought, you'll die. You'll be bones long before you even get you know, a step in the right.
Absolutely.
She was like, all you got to do is just sit. And then in your meditations, we're doing like sense observation, you know, observing breath, observing feeling, observing sight. And she'd say, that's cool. And then if all of a sudden you realize, oh crap, I've been thinking about the milk I have to buy tomorrow, you just pull yourself back to listening to the sounds you can hear. And she was like, you know, if you're doing really well, maybe when you start, it takes you about 2 weeks to work out that you've been distracted. And then 10 years later, it might be like a day, and then it might be a couple of hours. And if you can just whittle that down, success.
Yeah, you think you're meditating, then you realize you spent the last 30 minutes daydreaming about, you know, so
he's a movie hero,
or like, your bank account or some shit. Totally. Oh shit, I thought I was meditating, you know.
Totally. I did a Vipassana about, it was probably about 15 years ago, like the 12-day sits. I spent at least the first 7 days just playing every CD that I'd ever heard in my head, you know, until I was like, I'll just do the stupid activity. And then wouldn't you know it, I sit down day 8, I start actually doing the process, and I just spend the rest of the couple of days in tears. And I'm like, whoa, it turned out there was all this stuff I didn't want to really look at. You know, it was, well, the other one that I really enjoyed, there was a guy in I remember the same meditation hall, he would just pass out. So like as soon his distraction was, he'd just fall asleep.
That's right. I can't deal with this. I'm just going to sleep.
He'd be like, okay, I'd sit, and he'd just be out, like, bam. I loved it. It was good. It's actually the best. I think the best thing I learned from that, which, you know, how it's never like in a straight line. It's always a zigzag lightning bolt. There was a guy right up the front. I was sitting at the back, you know. I was new to meditation at that stage, and I was sitting at the back just watching. There was a guy in the front row, and it was freezing. We were in winter in Melbourne. It was like 1 degree up on the temple. There's no heating. And so we're wrapped in blankets in the meditation hall. And the guy looks like, he just looks like Yoda, you know, he's sitting there. He didn't move for 12 days. I swear. He'd be there when I got up in the morning. And then when I'd leave in the nighttime, he'd still be there. And I was like, did he even go to sleep? You know, he just sat for the whole time. And so in my mind, for the whole 12 days, I've got this narrative going on where I'm like, he's so amazing. Why couldn't I be like him? Wow, he's really discovered something. Anyway, brilliant, like kick in the face story. The last day when you're allowed to talk after the lunchtime, but it's super weird because you haven't uttered a word for 12 days. Go outside and he's standing there having another conversation with another guy. So I just kind of walk up into the conversation right as he says to the guy, man, that was so hard. I don't think I did any meditation. I spent the whole time just riding a horse. He's like, yeah, come on, number 4, coming down the front line. And I had this moment.
It's a lot of shit you can do with your eyes closed. You know what I mean? A lot of places you can go.
I was just like, I walked out and I was like, bam. He's not God either. Like, that was so helpful. You know, to suddenly just remember we're all into this together, having fun. You know? Yeah,
man. You know, like I said, that mind, it'll take you on a journey. That's what I like to, you know, if you're gonna like do any kind of like, I don't know. I don't even like to use the word meditation because I don't meditate really. I mean, I don't, you know, unfortunately, I don't do that kind of meditation. I just find that
just
living life has become sort of a meditation through the training though, right? You know, totally. Of course, before the training, you know, that's not the case, right? But after the training, all these years of training with Hatsumi Sensei, it just becomes like, you know, your sort of your life becomes that sort of meditative process in and of itself, you know, and you don't really worry about the mind, right? You know, like my dog Babu, right? Like I just, you know, she'll bring a ball to me, I'll throw it, she'll chase after it. And then when she comes back, I won't even use the same ball, pick something else, and we'll throw it. She's like, oh my God, what's that? And she goes, you know, and then there was something else, I'll throw it, something else. She's like, oh my God, she's chasing everything, right? Yeah. And that's how I used to be, you know, I think most people are like, when there's a thought, they're like, it like takes them over and they run with it. And they're like Baba, they just, whatever someone throws or is thrown, or they just chase it, right? And then you get to the point where, you know, you're able to sort of just realize that your mind is a bit of a freak. And, you know, don't let it pull you out into these crazy, you know, if it's like, okay, you can go chase that, but I'm busy right now. And you can actually like kind of disengage from that. It's like, you know, a little bit. And when you disengage, it sort of quiets down a little bit, you know?
Yeah.
Not always.
That little bit of space between like the things that are happening and you in the middle of it.
You know, between, you know, you and your mind, it's like being a little space between you and your, you know, something else, your feet or something. You just, you know, if you don't want to move them, then don't move them, right? So it's a little bit more different. I mean, people think that, you know, your mind is something different. It's just part of your body, right?
That's the perception.
So that's another thing that, you know, you got to think about here is that, you know, people are like, oh, they give this mind this huge like pedestal they put it on, but it's not. It's like, you know, it's just another organ.
Yeah, it's
right?
like a hand.
It's an organ, and it's useful for collecting data and sorting data and things like this. And but it's like an organ, right? So it's like telling your stomach, shut up, it's doing its job, you know.
Or you just walk around and you just compulsively slap everything because, you know, I can't help it. It's just my hand. It's part of it's just part of who I am.
No. So, you know, if you think of it as that way, as a part of an organ, just another part of your organ, and they give it some, you know, majestic standing up on and that's what a lot of the Western people put the brain up on this huge pedestal, right? And they think, oh, it's all in the brain. You know, I think, therefore I am. You know, it should be like I am, therefore I think, right?
Totally,
you know
I mean? You know, I reckon like Descartes was wrong.
You know, right?
Yeah.
Then your brain comes into play, right? So I always try to have to tell people that a lot. You know, it's like, you know, the brain is an organ. So, you know, it's an important organ, but it's still just an organ in your body, like your pancreas. So
you really like play out the, you know, 30 years of meditation to get your pancreas under control.
That's right. You need to stop secreting so much.
That's right. Yeah, I got to pull back. There's a line I like from Alan Watts, the American philosopher from the 70s, 60s, 70s. He's talking about, one of his students says something about ego, and he laughs and he says, I reckon getting rid of your ego is the biggest ego trip that you could have going on.
That's right.
And then enters into a discussion about like, what are you talking about? You know, it's just you. Actually, he had a good one. He said, you know, we're talking about like Atman, Brahman, and the different levels of thought and being. Yeah. And he said, that's because he was then talking to Americans as students. he said, but the way you guys are thinking about it, to his students, you're kind of like, hey, I've run into a house. Let's say you got a 3-story house. And so the thief runs into the bottom story. And so the cops run in after him. Thief freaks out. He's about to get caught out, takes the stairs up to the 2nd story. So the cops follow up to the 2nd story. Thief freaks out, takes it up to the 3rd story. They roll on. Thief jumps off back to the bottom and enters the building again. And he says, so all that happens is your voice in your head, when it's about to get caught out, suddenly becomes so mature and enlightened, moves up to the 2nd story. So it's the same voice. It's just you talking to yourself.
It's just the same, man. The same thing. Yeah.
Just putting on different masks. I always liked that, you know. Whereas I've had experiences of like transcendentalism that didn't involve my thinking. And they've been, well, exactly. And it was like, but it's not until I think I started to have those just randomly that I even had any idea that was different. Yeah,
that's a thing. That's a different thing. Yeah.
It's not. It's like if someone says, "Oh, you know, how about the color Plossoff?" And you're like, "That's not a color." You know, you can't even imagine it until that happens.
Right. That's right. You know, it's like when you're thinking about this thing, like getting rid of your ego, becoming like the biggest ego trip. Just go to any yoga shala in India. Totally. And see how many people will be like arguing who's more enlightened.
Yeah, totally.
Oh, who was your teacher? Oh, well then apparently you haven't learned this yet. You know? I'm way beyond that now. Totally. And it's like
it's all about pedigree.
Like, yeah. They're all like arguing who's more enlightened. You know, it's like
you just like leave the peanut gallery to.
Yeah.
But it's funny though, don't you find? Because like we're all like that. Like I haven't. Well, I love Khalil Gibran, The Prophet. You know, the book from 1927, and that line he says that no one can rise higher than the highest that exists for everyone, and no one can fall lower than the lowest that exists for everyone, and that the saint isn't clean-handed in the doings of the felon. And I'm like,
beautiful.
I love that. Good, like back fist in the face. You know, just to remind me that I'm not going to get anywhere. Like there's nowhere to get. There's nowhere to go. Training's taught me that. Like the study Hoshinden Bujinkan's. And at first it was like despairing for a moment. And then I realized it was so liberating that
that's right.
There was nowhere to go, so I didn't have to get anywhere. There was no pressure. I couldn't get it wrong because I can never get it done. So I'll just chill. I'll just chill the crap out and
that's it.
Slowly, you know.
That's it. Just chilling. You know, I love to, you know, one of my best things that I can say for like, to help people get in that kind of state is breathing techniques, you know. And I think the easiest one to do is, I always do this is when you're in like a shavasana, like in a yoga or something, when you're like that, you know, after you've done a little bit of practice and you lay down on the ground, right? And when they say, oh, this is great, it's time to sleep, right? Like some of the
pranayama.
Yeah. Actually, you know, shavasana is kind of one of the most difficult poses, right? They say, because, you know, dead people don't think, right?
Yeah. This is like yoga to highlight breath, not to fall asleep or.
You know, so Shavasana means like the dead man's pose, right? And dead men don't think, right? But you're sitting there in Shavasana, you're thinking, oh man, that was good, but now I want to go make my, you know, my, I don't know what it is, some sort of, you know, my yogurt spinach blend here, and I'm gonna be so clean and pure. And you're thinking about how pure you are and stuff like that. But that's you know, that's you've gone, you're off Shavasana because thinking is the thing. Yeah. And so I think, like in the Vipassanas, how they teach that breathing stuff, I think is one of the best things. What I find is that holding the breath, you know, like taking deep breaths in and holding it, focusing between the eyebrows a bit. Of course, this doesn't really matter how you do it or what you want to do, but I find for me, that's great. You hold the breath, right? And then experience what that feels like holding the breath, right? It feels pretty good, right? And then you let it all out as much as you can, even more than you think you can let it all out. And then this is after you've done some breathing, right? And then you let it completely out. So there's no breath coming back into you. And in that moment, just observe how you feel. And you'll feel very, well, empty because there's no like air, there's no prana. I mean, you're almost as close to being dead as you can, right? There's no prana flowing in, air is all out, you know, and you're just holding that position. And for me, that's like the loveliest breath technique there is. And you kind of focus between your eyebrows a bit. And at that point, man, you can just zone. And a lot of times thought doesn't come into your brain at that point. So that's an interesting one. I really like those two, holding and then holding when you have breath and then holding without the breath. If you can practice those two a bit, I think that really will help you to calm the brain a bit.
Oh, I like that. That's awesome. Thanks for
no,
putting that on the board.
Guaranteed
on the
to
table.
work. It's not
No.
guaranteed.
It's nothing's a
to work.
guarantee. And at the end, I know what the end of the destination is. It's in the ground.
For me, that's always been a good one. And I think it really changes the state of mind. I mean, that's why, like you say, when you have the Mahabharata, right?
Yeah.
The big story from India, right? And in there you have like the 5 heroes, right? And the strongest one is Bhima. He's like the strongest one. Nobody can control Bhima. He's like fighting demons,
riding on horses over
massive snakes in half, and poison him, he doesn't die, right? But he's called Bhima, and he's correlated to like the chakra of the wind chakra, and for breathing, right? For the breath as well, because the breath is one thing that can really, really help to tame the mind. So it's one of the strongest techniques you can use to help get the mind to calm down sometimes.
Totally.
Again, nothing's guaranteed. Don't quote me on anything.
Well, everyone's got to just make their own adventure, hey? But it's nice to have some rocks in your backpack to start with.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then things you can put down on the journey.
Do that. Do some breathing.
Totally.
Deep breathing.
Maybe I feel like I was really lucky that when I was a teenager, I just wandered into my teacher's Hoshin dojo, the Hoshin, and I wasn't looking for martial arts, and I wasn't out. I mean, Google wasn't a thing, but I wasn't out searching for the martial art. There was just a cute girl I was chasing, and she was doing a class, so I ended up there. And then, like 21 years later, here we are. I don't know where she went. just a star on the way.
That's right. Some stardust.
Totally, yeah. Just got me pointed in that direction. But like I look back and I think, man, I was blessed as could be that I wandered into an art that when my teacher was like, hey, we're going to sit down and we're going to actually explore the inside of yourself, and we're going to dwell there for a little while, and then we're going to take a step outside, into the world. And I think, I was lucky. Whew. Things could have gone off a totally different path for me.
I had to go through lots of stuff before I found the Bujinkan. I mean, I had to go through.
Well, it's a good segue. Let's go back and introduce you again. We kind of jumped ahead. I was going to say, hey, why don't we? Would you introduce yourself, your background to the students?
Sure.
Some of them won't know you.
Sure. I mean, I don't know where to start. I mean,
well, I thought that was a really good segue. We can look back to how did you get involved in martial arts?
Well, like I'd always wanted to be involved in martial arts since I was, I can't remember. I mean, ever since I was born, apparently my family says that's what I always wanted to do. So I guess it was in my DNA or somehow, or in my soul or spirit, who knows, but I always wanted to do it. Mom didn't want me to do it. So when I left the house about 17 to go to college, the first thing I did was sign up for a karate class, karate club.
Yeah.
And of course, before that, I was, in high school, I was watching all the movies and just trying to mimic them all, right? So I joined the karate club, and it was like a Cobra Kai, though. Seriously.
So did you have heroes then? Like, so we're talking like when Chuck Norris was still super head of karate worldwide. That kind of thing.
Chuck Norris was awesome. He would do this flying sidekick through a car window shield. That just blew my mind. I was like, oh my God, that's awesome. Yeah, awesome. Of course. Bruce Lee was, huge, and all the old Chinese Kung Fu movies, I was just like, enthralled with.
Yeah.
So I was loving that. And I joined a karate club. It was a small one. It was just like this crazy British guy who was like 40 something, massive, was like a merchant marine or something, and just kicking the shit out of us. I was like 17, it's just nuts. There's like 4 of us in the class, and I can understand why, because no one wanted to stay, right? I don't know why I stayed, but but he did teach me how to do a lot of devastating kicks and punches and things like that, and he'd bring me to these tournaments, just like Cobra Kai, like every month I'd have to go to a tournament, but I'd win like every time. I was winning. I won everything, every time I went. So I was thinking, oh man, this is cool, you know. But as I kept training, and I just had this sort of realization that it's not going to work.
Yeah.
You know, it might work in a Cobra Kai tournament, right? You know, when no one's trying to like actually kill you, you know. But like, you know, I'd be walking the streets and I see these big, scary looking dudes, and I'm thinking, yeah, if I roundhouse him, he's not going to care. He's going to be like, yeah, whatever, you know.
And you were still in America at that time, yeah?
I was still in America, yeah.
Yeah.
So I'd have these dreams, and I started having these dreams, you know, and this opponent would show up in my dream and want to fight me, and I'd be like, yeah, no thanks. And he would just pummel me, and I'd be like, and I'd be trying to like punch all these karate punches and kick all these kicks, and he was just like batting away like flies and just pummel me, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, oh man, this can't be good. And I'd ask my teacher, I say, you know, look, and you know, I saw like an Aikido class, right, or something, and I like, hey, they got these wrist locks, you know, I've never seen that, you know, should we do wrist locks like them? And he's like, it's like, no, man, you just got to learn how to punch and kick hard, you know? Pussy, you know. Like,
that's right.
You know, I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. I mean, you know, if there's a wrist lock, shouldn't we at least explore the possibility that it's a useful thing, you know? But
just catch the fist in midair.
Yeah, you know, no, man, you just got to learn how to kick and punch harder. What are you doing? So I was like, okay, this is not quite the answer I'm looking for, and you know. Yeah. And so I was like, okay. So I ended up, fortunately, I had to go do like an overseas study program in France. And then I was in France and studying for a year. And that's when I met Aikido. I met a really great guy there named Christian Tissier, who had studied in Japan for like 7, 8, 9, 10 on him, many years. But he was really good. I mean, like really good. I mean, it was like eye-opening. I was like, wow, this is really cool. I love it.
Yep.
And so I studied for a year there. And then I went back to America and I said, let's continue with this Aikido stuff. And the Aikido level in America, after being with someone who's in Japan for like 8 or 9, 10 years, it was like, it was like for kindergarten. I was like, what? You know, what is this? You know, and it's going to get me killed again if I stay in this group, you know? Yeah, wow. And so I quit that. I went to Kung Fu. I did the whole thing and nothing was happening for me. I thought, okay, maybe it was just a bad joke on me trying to think that there was real martial arts in the world, you know.
It's actually all just movies and wires.
Yeah, you know, it was all just a lie for young boys, you know, and the reality is that it's just a bunch of crap. You know.
Yeah, you can totally come to that. Hey, like it's easy to come to that thought.
Yeah, I was disillusioned, you know. I was like, you know, man, so I guess life is just going to be, you know, drudgery. I'm just going to go to work and make, you know, try to, you know, the line that they sell you, right? You got to go to work, you got to do this, you got to do that. Yeah. And I was like, this is just going to be like, you know, being in prison for, you know, 80 years.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Totally.
And a friend of mine said, you got to meet this guy who trained with this guy in Japan. And I was like, yeah, sure. I've seen it. I've done it, you know. And then he came back to me again. You should really see this guy who trained with this guy, Hatsumi Sensei in Japan. I'm like, yeah, I've heard masters before. I'm not falling for it. About the third time he comes, I'm like, okay, I'll go see it, you know, whatever. Let's go see this guy. And I go to the Bujinkan dojo. Again, it wasn't like a proper, like, you know, there's no dojo. It was just like, you know, training in a hole somewhere. Yeah. And I'm like, he starts moving and I'm like, yeah, okay, Aikido stuff. Yeah, great. Okay. Karate-like stuff. Yeah. Okay. Whatever. And then he starts pulling out different weapons and I'm like, what? You know, starts pulling off his belt. I'm like, now that makes sense. You know what I mean? And starts pulling out like other things, you know, pens and stuff. And this wasn't just to show me. He was just training, you know, just having a good time like we do, you know, and I'm just like, that makes sense. That also makes more sense. You know? And so I was sort of drawn in, you know, I started sitting forward, you know, and looking closer at it. And by the end of the hour, I was like, okay, I think, you know, I'll try it.
I'll try it. They've got a free trial class.
I'll try it. Yeah, you know.
And so is this a Bujinkan dojo in America at this time?
Yeah, this was a branch of Stephen Hayes's dojo.
Yeah.
Before he had the Quest Center, those, you know.
Yeah, before Toshindo.
All that, right? Before Toshindo. This is back in the day. So this was his like top student. And this guy is still his top student to this day, Mark Russo.
Yep.
He was a big karate guy too, right? So he's very much powerful, was very used his body well, a smart guy. So I joined there and I was very happy there. Yeah, I really enjoyed the training a lot.
Yeah, nice. So it's just funny you mentioned because Hoshin, which was Glenn Morris's art that he put together like 1980, 79, 81.
Yeah.
You know, he and Stephen Hayes ended up there's a whole like 10, 15 year adventure between the two of them. And Stephen Hayes is the reason that Glenn ends up in Japan and meets Soke. You know, so it's like funny stories. It's amazing how often Stephen pops up in terms of like how like an intermediary between Japan and America at that time.
Yeah, absolutely.
All through the 80s.
He certainly was for me too. You know, I mean, I trained with Mark for a while, and then I was like, I want to meet people who just have trained with Sensei, like as many of them as I can, right? to see how many, you know, just get a more of a rounded perspective of who this Hatsumi guy is, right? You know?
Yeah.
Because Mark was learning from Stephen, but he had never met Hatsumi Sensei, right? So I'm like, okay, well, let's go find out people who have actually direct contact with Hatsumi Sensei and see if it changes, right?
Yep.
And so, you know, I started traveling around America trying to meet anybody who'd ever met Hatsumi Sensei. And when I did, I was always like, wow, okay, that's cool. That's another piece of this puzzle. I like what I'm seeing, you know. And finally, I was like, I had an opportunity to just move for the job I was at that time. And I said, I'm gonna move up to Stephen's place, you know, to Dayton, Ohio, believe it or not.
Yeah.
Early 90s, I moved up there. And I started getting more involved actually with Sean Havens, one of his top students back in the day, because he was younger and really doing a lot of hard stuff back then. And that's what I wanted. I was still like 26, right?
Yeah. Thrown around.
So we were training hard with Sean and those guys. And I got to tell this story. It's always funny. You know, Sean's like, hey, my friend who lives in Japan is coming back. Do a seminar. You want to join? And I'm like, are you kidding me? Do I want to join? Yeah.
Sorry, I'm busy that night.
Yeah. You know, I'm like, he lives in Japan. He trains with Hatsumi Sensei, you know, on a regular basis. I was like, well, of course why wouldn't I go? And it's so funny. I think a lot of people nowadays have gotten so complacent. You know, they're like, oh yeah, you know, I don't know if they understand the value of that. I mean, I was like, wow, when someone's training with Sensei and I got to meet them, I was like, holy crap, you know, let's go.
That doesn't happen. Like
it doesn't happen. And maybe it's happening more and more again, but again,
maybe I was gonna say maybe if it's happening more, then it becomes more about quality and time.
That's right.
Oh, someone I've trained with Hatsumi Sensei twice, as opposed to I've been there for 30 years studying with him.
Yeah, right. So Dave comes over. He's been living here for like, I don't know, a few years now.
Yeah.
And I show up the day of the seminar and I don't know what I'm expecting. I don't know, you know, but in comes this skinny, scrawny looking, you know, he's got this like mullet, like a mullet haircut and like his teeth. He's got the gas in his teeth and stuff. And I'm not saying that's bad, right? But
totally. You know, just not what you were looking for.
I was like, what? You know, I was thinking like a warrior is going to come and teach me. Some scrawny dude with a mullet, and you know, and I'm like, what? You know, and I'm like, oh no, you know, what did I do? You know, but then he starts moving, he starts doing what, you know, the stuff he's been learning in Japan, and I was like, holy crap, you know, I was like, what is it? It was like from another dimension. It was so different, you know, because no one in America, you know, had really, I don't know. Dave was like an empty sheet when he went there. He was just like, you know, sucking it in. You know, he didn't have any preconceived notions. He didn't have like this, you know, like he wasn't trying to sell something. I'm not saying anything bad here about anybody. I'm just saying like he wasn't trying to make a product. He was just training in the art, right? You know, so he didn't, you know, like bastardize it or dumb it down or compartmentalize it. He was just like, yeah, well, so we were doing this and this is what we did. And I was just like, holy crap, you know, what in the world, you know? And I mean, just like all these killing techniques and things. I was just like, what? You know, I was like, I'm like, damn. And I was like,
you know, you're like, what the crap have I been studying for the last 20?
What have I been doing with this freaking, you know, shooter to the neck and this other kind of boxing movement that I thought was cool. You know, I'm like, holy crap. And so I said, Dave, I said, man, because I had been told, you know, you can't go to Japan, Sensei's not taking students and everything, you know, this was that era when that was going on.
Yeah. Right? And a certain someone made that the rumor.
You know, the thing, right? You know, and I mean, I don't have any kind of bad feelings about that. I don't care about it.
It reminds me of a funny story of that person. I heard through the Hoshinden grapevine that there was a seminar that was made that was like, hey, come back, brought stuff back from Japan. It's the I'm back home seminar. I'll put on a big show, and then just for whatever reason, Soke is like, hey, I'm going to buy a ticket and I'm going to fly over and I'm going to attend the seminar. And this person's like, no, absolutely, you can't do that because you'll ruin the,
that's right.
the bravado of like,
that's right.
You're meant to be the ninja master. You can't just turn up.
I can't sell it now.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
I'm not angry. I got nothing but love for everybody, right?
Totally.
Because without all their connections, I wouldn't be where I am right now, right? But at that point, that was kind of the storyline that, okay, well, you can't go, since he's not. And so I said, Dave, man, can I go to Japan? And he's like, looks at me, he's like I'm crazy. He's like, what? He's like, well, why not? And I'm like, what? I'm like, well, see, I want to go to Japan and stay with Sensei. He's like, yeah, whatever, come over. And I'm like, I mean, are you serious? Are you just fucking with me? And he's like, he literally didn't know what I was talking about.
Yeah.
He's like, yeah, just come over. Everyone comes over and can train. And this was like, I was like, oh Lord. I was like, okay. I just sold everything within a month. I'd sold everything I had. And I was like on the next plane to Japan. And, and I, that's it. I'm gone. I went, And I thought, okay, I'll go for 5 years. I'm gonna master this art and master Japanese. I'm gonna get all this stuff and come back and be another ninja master. I had the same stupid,
totally,
And of course, I got here and I was just like, I was like, what? I met Sensei the first time I walked into Ayase Dojo. I had no idea what he was doing or saying, or I was just like blown away. He was 63 at that time. I was 27, and he was just like a madman, jumping around, kicking, striking, tearing. And I was just like, it blew my whole paradigm of what life could be. From an American point of view, where at 63, you're basically decrepit and fat and have diabetes, and you're useless, to being like, my God, this guy looks like he's 35. And I was like, okay, I'm here. You tell me what to do, old 35-year-old man. I will follow, and I will follow you, because it changed my paradigms, and also it resonated so strongly with me. Like, of course this is it. Of course this is it. Because I always watched my father. I said, why are you drinking all that? Why are you smoking? Why you you're sick, but you still do it, and you're eating this crappy food. Why are you doing that? And so I always knew there was another way, but I had never had like someone, like a role model, just just come down, like be like, transported in front of your eyes and be like,
here I am.
Here it is. It's true. All the things that you were thinking or dreaming, you can do that. You don't have to follow that path. Those conditioning, the way you've been conditioned and kind of brainwashed by society and, your surroundings. So that was massive.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
And that was what, 25, 30 years?
I was about 27 years ago about now. Yeah. I came when I was 27, and I've probably spent now half my life here. So I'll be 54.
Yeah. Amazing.
So So now it's like, some of the young guys come over there, like, and we'll be training, and then they're like, well, Paul, how old are you? I'm like, well, I'm 54. Like, they're like, what?
I thought you were 30. Yeah.
What?
That's funny. I get the opposite. What? You're 34? I thought you were like 50.
Well, it'll change. It's just because of your mature demeanor.
No, I thought I was going to say that it's the tummy, actually. But like, I know what you mean. I think back, the thing about how like a role model just bam, just arrives in front of you. My original Hoshin teacher was like that. I mean, he was a lot younger when I met him. He was probably in his early 30s. I was 13. So it was like, so I'm 34 this year. So it was 21 years ago. And, but he just, and I had lots of, there's lots of narrative. I had lots of issues with my father, and I didn't find men around me where I grew up who I felt like could be the role model that I wanted. Either I decided they weren't good enough because of my own arrogance, or it just didn't fit, it didn't work. It was the wrong relationship, all that stuff. And then I suddenly wandered into this dojo chasing this girl, and there's this guy comes out who just, and now I can talk about it in hindsight. I had no idea what was happening at the time, but now it was as if all of his thought was just in his feet. And it was like the first time that I'd met someone, especially this a man, just walk out who felt like he didn't really care what I thought about him, but he was quite capable of loving and being compassionate towards me without any weird strings. And it was like that whole conversation was played out in a second. And I just signed up on the spot. I was like, oh, I didn't actually care about martial arts. I was just, at that time, I was like, oh, I have to spend as much time as I can around this person. And then after 5 or 6 years of, of that, things changed. And I think it was only then that I suddenly, my focus shifted to the art, as a whole. I started to realize, oh, this is what helps make this person become this person. And then my role model had left, he had his own things going on in his own life. He wasn't there anymore. And I kind of shifted. It was like, I started a relationship with the art, with Hoshinden. And that was when that journey started for me. But man, I don't know what I would have done if he hadn't just plopped in, like, bam.
It's true. I mean, I guess they appear when we need them, or when we're ready for them, so to speak. And I think that's interesting how you said, like, with no strings attached, right?
Yeah.
That's so important in this art. You know what I mean? The more I do it, the more there's nothing worse than attaching a string to something. You know what I mean? It's nothing worse to do. And we have that in our teachings, right? In the dojo kun, right? Or no, we're not in the dojo. We're in the gojo.
Yep.
The 5 kind of
the precepts,
right? And the first one is fumetsu no fusei, right? Which comes up in different other philosophies as well. But I just love that one, fumetsu no fusei, right? Fumetsu means like unending, and fusei is this idea of giving or being charitable, and there,
like a waterfall.
Unfortunately, in capitalistic societies and in our societies, everything becomes a transaction between people. It's like, this, you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. Everything has to be a transaction. You know what I mean? We say give and take, right? And this is something that Hatsumi Sensei would always say, and it's not give and take. It should just be give. And this is interesting. Give and return. Give and return, because you know what, it was never yours anyways, right?
Yeah.
Right?
You just
the
intermediary.
So I mean that's a whole different way of looking at things, right? And the more I trained, the more I realized that I was a very transactional person, through my whole upbringing, right? From everything, it was like, especially in America, it was like, you got to get yours and this and that. Whereas this was totally foreign. What, I mean, you can just be free and just keep giving, and everything is going to work out. It doesn't make sense. But then, and I think we're seeing a lot of that. Coming to fruition now with all this, information that's traveling around, and people become that everything is. With solar energy coming online now, becoming more and cheaper. I'm getting off way on track.
It's all
giving is like, it's creating a better world. And I hope the younger people can really embrace this and find new ways of doing things, because it's when I do this art, it's I know we do it and people pay for lessons and stuff, but really that's like a token. It's not like the main, it's not the reason I would ever do this art. You know what I mean?
Well, I don't think I could ever earn enough money to pay back my gratitude to, like, I mean, I don't know what dollar figure, there was a specific point in my teenagehood where my teacher's words and a talk that my teacher had with me literally saved my life on a very tangible physical level, like a week or two later. And I'm like, how much do I pay? Do I drop a check? Hey, thanks for that, by the way. Here's $27.
And really,
because it would cheapen the relationship,
and I think that's the same way for me. It saved my life too, absolutely physically, I'm sure, but absolutely in a whole another metaphysical way, like being able to drop, people always get confused about STEMI. Be able to drop everything, right? Start dropping everything. Now, STEMI was, of course, starts with physical concepts, right?
But STEMI, metaphysically,
STEMI was something much deeper, right? As well. So be able to drop away a lot of things, all that conditioning, all those thoughts, all those things, and allow stuff to, flow more and be part of that. And don't miss the waves. Don't miss this ride.
Totally. That's like that good. I can't remember who states this, an old metaphor about like people who miss the boat, or they think they've missed a boat. They go down to the harbor, they just miss the boat, They turn around, they spend an hour complaining that they missed the boat. They turn around, they just missed another one. They turn around, they're like, damn, I missed another boat. There's never any boat. They turn around, another one goes by. They're like, crap. Meanwhile, there's just guys who just get on the boat and don't say anything, walk by, get on the boat.
Yeah, it's true, man.
And I always like these
You're
stories.
going to miss it. You're going to miss it if you keep, if you're so distracted all the time. And I think that's what happened with this art, is that allowed me to be not so distracted, but just to ride things, to ride it and enjoy what's coming, and to be very, very at home in this whole bubbling, manifestation. We say Banpen Fuyo, so I'm talking.
I was gonna say we're back to Banpen Fuyo, yeah.
That's right. That's right. That to be super comfortable in the midst of uncertainty and change, right? Yeah. Because that's what we're born into, right?
Yeah.
So and the more you look for security and things to be solidified, as in like even thoughts, like we say kote kannen in Japanese, or fixed ideas, fixed thoughts about things. I'm always prepared to throw everything I have away because I know it's always changing, and nothing's going to stay the same. So now, because this coronavirus, I see a lot of people going through a lot of hardship now, and that's really, it is a shame, right? But as a ninja, it was like, okay, well, things are just moving this way, and we start to move with them instead of against them, right? My sisters were like, so what are we going to do? We're going to die. Everything's going to be terrible. And I'm just like, well, you're looking at this end of the stick. You're missing this whole other end of this. You're missing the whole, but the whole stick attached to this end of the stick. And
turns out the stick is a paintbrush.
That's right. That's right. And I was trying to help my sisters, but some people are just so like focused on a certain thing that it's difficult unless you start to go through this training from a physical level, maybe up and through.
Well, we're back to narrative again, aren't we? Like the stories we really tell ourselves. It's funny, I still find it tricky to take the breath and drop. But I mean, compared to 20 years ago, I can do that. I can do that even slightly unwillingly, but with like a sense of like, okay, I am a little bit acting like a 5-year-old, having my tantrum about it, but I kind of know this is inevitably what I'm going to do anyway. So I'm just having a tantrum because it's kind of funny for myself, that little moment. But
I get that, as a father now of a 1.5-year-old, and I got another one coming.
Congratulations,
boy. So I'll be 54 when he's born. Let's stop in this train. So these are my first children too. I never thought I'd have children, so these are my first children. But sometimes you get frustrated, and it's even worse now when you see you're frustrated, and you're like, God, I'm being a real dick.
Yeah, I know.
Would you just stop?
I wouldn't want.
And you're totally aware that you're being a dick, and that's the worst. You're like, I guess I have to stop being a dick, but I don't want to be. I don't want.
I know. I'm kind of getting something out of this.
I'm enjoying being a dick, and don't stop me.
I said to one of my students, I was like, I'll come up with the title for my autobiography. I've decided what it's going to be called. It's going to be called "What Not to Do," an autobiography by Sylph Hawkins. It's just like. Maybe this is the story of what not to do. Don't follow me. It was the life of training my life. It might absolutely ruin yours.
Yeah, right.
But I wouldn't trade it for a thing.
Yeah. I keep telling my students this a lot too. I said the most important thing. I kept telling I don't know if he's my student. I don't even like to say students, but people that train. He's a young guy. I'm like, man. I was like, life just don't be a dick. Don't be a dick. Just like and when you're playing tennis, right? The most important thing is to keep the ball in play, right? And let the opponent make the mistakes. And I kept telling him, just hit the ball back over the fence. Just over the net. Don't try to smash it. Don't try to be clever. Just keep the ball in play, and
that's a great metaphor.
And the other guy's going to hit it out eventually because he get frustrated, angry, whatever. You just keep hitting the ball over no matter what happens. Don't be a dick. Don't try to like smash it. Just keep lobbing it back over. That's all. That's all it is. You just keep lobbing things back over, and And
they loved it back, and then you still get to play the game.
And eventually, he'll hit the net. He'll hit it out of bounds. It's no problem. You just don't do it from your side, right?
I love those things. They're like, censor yourself, don't censor others. Just live the good life, and don't try to manipulate what others do. Because I mean, you can't anyway. It's like trying to catch the clouds. You're never gonna just go crazy.
It's just creating your own trap. Then you fall in your own trap. Then you're like, God damn it, I did it again. You know,
I was gonna say, damn, it took me 20 years to work through it. It's like the meditation, getting distracted again, isn't it? Like you suddenly realize you've been being a complete douche for 10 years. And then you go back and you're like, oh, that's right. Whoops, I better get back on the train. But do you find that like if at that moment you don't actually get back on the train, you just sit down and start condemning yourself? you don't actually ever go anywhere, you know?
As you get older, like me, you're 34 right now?
Yeah.
Right. So I'm 20 years ahead of you, right?
Yeah.
You know, you don't have enough time to worry about that.
To waste.
Okay, look, I was a dick. Okay, no problem. I knew it. I'm done. Let's go.
I like that. Okay, something for me to look forward to.
Don't have enough time to worry about that anymore. I think that kind of finite thing, when you're getting closer, you're like, oh well, you know what? Too bad. Let's move on. You know,
I'll write that down. That's really.
and you're more aware. You're able to catch it quicker. It's just you know, and that's why I think what I keep telling my young student Rick. I say, you know, that's why Sensei wrote for us all the time. Nintai Jisei in the beginning, right? When you're young, all you need is Nintai and Jisei. You know. Nintai is the idea to persevere and have that self-control. And I think in the tennis match, that's what you have. You just have to have just persevere through it and self-control, you know, just have a steady rhythm, you know, we end up making all our problems. That's the problem.
Yeah.
We make all our problems.
Yeah.
And through training, I was able to realize this. Within 1 year of training with Sensei, I woke up one day, this is probably when I was 28, and I was like, oh my God, I am an asshole. You know? Literally, and this was really, really difficult for me to accept.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, like, oh my God, I'm a real honest to God asshole.
Yeah.
You know, all my relationships are shit because I've been doing it. I've been manipulating. I've been this and that. And I said, oh my God, I got to get rid of this, you know?
Yeah.
And so I started training on trying to be aware of that.
Yeah.
Right. Of these conditions and these not responses, but reactions, right? You know, these kind of ingrained reactions that we create. And if we repeat them, they keep getting stronger and stronger, and they become, you know, your character, right? And that's a scary thing when you don't even realize that you're repeating ingrained like conditioning. And then that will become your character, and that becomes your destiny, that becomes your life, and then you're dead. You don't even realize it.
And people write stories about what an asshole you were.
That's right. That guy's an asshole. Good thing he died, you know? No good riddance, you know?
Yeah, what a shame.
I woke up and I was like, oh my God, this is not me. These are these things that I adopted. These are from my mother, right? And I'm not saying talk bad about my mother, but I'm saying she had these ideas. And I said, I have to get rid of these. And it took me like 2 years, you know, and I was like, oh, I'm being generous to myself. Probably was longer, but it took me like 2 years before I could like sort of get a grip on that and feel when they were coming out and let it all go. And I was sleeping peacefully again at night. I'm like, oh, this is great now. And then I woke up and I was like, one morning, like, oh my God, this is my father's shit now. And I was like, God damn, you know? And I was like, okay, I got to get rid of this now, you know? And I started working on getting, because, you know, there's nothing worse than just repeating these conditionings and these things that didn't work for them. They're not going to work for you. Right?
Exactly.
So get them out. Right. And so I started getting those out for a couple of years, and then I'm like, okay, I'm great. You know, I'm fine. And then I'm like, oh my God, I'm a total capitalist pig. I'm not thinking about money all the time. Like, God, I got to get this out of my mind now, you know? And, it was a long journey, you know. And like I said, I thought I'd be there in 5 years. I mean, you see, 5 years in, I'm just realizing how conditioned I was in trying to get rid of all these, you know, fixed thoughts and ideas. And since it was helping me work through them, not by like telling me about it, but through the training, and the examples of a physical example of it.
Because it's there, isn't it? Like I see that. At whatever level I'm at, you know, that I can perceive from my journey up the infinite mountain, that like it's like this works both ways. I get out on the mats, I train, I persevere, I just turn up to my study, flowers bloom inside me emotionally, mentally, spiritually. and then vice versa. You know, I have other times I just click on something, I make a change to my dynamic, you know, a story, a narrative about myself. I get back on the mats, something's different. I've grounded. I've been able to like, I've just got cement in my feet all of a sudden that I didn't have, you know. Or I'm not hollow. I'm not just made of air. I'm actually made of something again. I've loved watching that back and forward, it's shown me that in the times where it's like I just have to keep turning up. That's like the minimum that I have to do is just turn up and get on the mat and train.
You know,
that's it.
I tell Rick that all the time. I say, just turn up and train.
I don't even have to be any good.
No, you don't. You don't really.
I just have to turn up.
You don't. You know, I'm still working. I'm still chasing Hatsumi Sensei. You know, I mean, I'm still like, oh God, I got so far to go. And I look at his volume of work and his writings and things, and I'm just like, wow. You know, it's you know, I'm like, damn.
Yeah.
So I'm you know, I'm better than I was. Maybe, I don't know. I'm not even going to say that. I'm just on this journey, and it's been a great one. So I can't, you know, so it's getting better and better all the time, you know. So
you just turn up again tomorrow. Yeah.
I'll just show up again tomorrow and do whatever I don't know.
Yeah.
You know, like I'm just making right now, as before we were chatting, I was just making a video on how to, you know, make Negishi-ryu shuriken, like, you know, how to wrap the handles and things like this. And so just weird things are happening. You should post in the pod notes, like there'll be like a new Twitter account for me in Japan. My Japanese students are doing it. And so they're trying to make a YouTube channel for me in Japan. So these guys are really putting together these. I'm speaking Japanese, right? So so I'm speaking with them in Japanese. I'm teaching them in Japanese and doing funny things for them in Japanese. So
awesome.
That channel is going to be up on YouTube. They're doing the ninja. It's called Ninja Oyaji Paul.
Oyaji,
of course we know. Oyaji
okay.
Uncle or old dude.
Okay,
old guy. So it's like old guy Ninja Paul, right? And
like Papa-san.
Yeah, you know.
Yeah.
So they're doing the Twitter there, and they're doing the Japanese channel, and I'm working on my own like English version channel, like for, you know, kind of mimicking a little bit, but you know, of course I like to do all different types of things. So, you know,
that sounds
awesome.
We'll
have those two channels up, and because I wanted to get more access to more people out there. I was doing my Zoom chats, right? And they were paid, right? And people were like, well, why do they have to be paid? And I'm like, well, you know, well, I had to buy some cameras and shit, so, you know, but you know, now I'm like, oh, okay, I'll try to make, you know, two different types of doorways so more people can access, you know, teachings, you know, so that's what I'm doing.
That sounds awesome. I'll grab the details off you and put them in the podcast notes and the description. Maybe if anyone wants to jump on board.
People can go look, and I mean, I think it's really, we're doing some interesting stuff, you know. I mean, just there's a whole bunch of stuff you can do about shuriken, right? Different types of shuriken, how they throw, how you throw them, how they fly.
Totally.
You know, distance parameters, how to use them with other weapons. I mean, you know, it's not just about throwing towards the mat, which we all love to do. You know,
which is what I'm still just like. I mean,
that's where you start, though.
I was last with you guys in Tokyo in January 2020, Jan February, and so you know, Kurosawa Sensei helped me just tighten up 1 little %. I've just spent every week working on that. You know, that guy's really. And I'm just there, and I'm there, and in my mind, I'm like, it's the same thing. I'm like, I just turn up. And I just throw shuriken for an hour, and then tomorrow, and then maybe when I'm back in Japan next, he might be like, "Okay, that was all crap." Actually, you know what I mean? Actually, do it like this. But I'm like, "Oh, I'll just turn up." It's really fun. I really enjoy it.
It is fun. You know, he's really good too. You know, I mean, every time I see him throw shuriken, I'm always like, damn, you know, I'm pretty good. You know, I mean, if people saw me, they'd be like, that guy's good.
Yeah.
But I look at Kurosawa, I'm like,
oh,
damn.
Yeah.
Damn it. You know, it's like, he's so smooth. There's like no power, you know, he can throw from any distance, you know, pretty much, you know, all the time. And I'm just like, wow, you know, just so smooth.
I can still hear the thump of him throwing I can't remember the name but the actual Negishi Shuriken, the really thick,
the big ones,
and now it's just like throwing them 20 meters away.
We were here doing some video, and yesterday I had a bunch of Negishi Shuriken out, and I'm throwing them, and then he gets up and throws them. Like, I'm like, damn! It's like you know, whew, you know. I was like, damn it! I got a lot. I still got something to work on. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, hey. You know, I'm sure you're not the only one. Actually, that reminds me. There's a funny story. So when I was with you last January 2020, and we're doing the Shuriken Jutsu sessions in your back garden. And there's a whole bunch of different people, and over the days we've got different there's different foreigners coming and going. Yeah.
Right.
And there was one guy, and quite a somewhat, high up Bujinkan guy. And I really enjoyed watching the interaction between him and Chris Sensei, who was just like, and obviously I can't do his accent, but Sensei's saying, okay, so you stand like this. This is how I want you to stand. This is how I want you to throw. And the other dude's like, yeah, and just does what he wants, throws, and then Sensei comes back and goes, okay, yes, but I want you to do it like this. Stand like this, throw like this, and he goes, yeah, just does what he wants. And after 5 times, like I was watching, I was just super curious because I'm always keen to see what teachers do in that moment. I think it says it blossoms their character, it shows them. And I just cracked up laughing. He turned to the guy after 5 times and he said, "You're very good."
Yeah.
I don't think there's anything I can teach you. You're too good for me. And in my mind, I was like, "Holy crap!" That's like even being sworn at wouldn't have been as much as a cut as being told that look, you're too awesome. So nothing I can do.
Maybe a few years from now, that guy will be like,
damn,
was he actually not complimenting?
Was that actually trying to just get rid of me?
I'll be like, wait a minute. Maybe not. Maybe he'll just keep going.
That's right. It's only after another offshoot Shuriken Jutsu school, whatever country you came from. That's always so funny. I love those moments where I watch, and they remind me as well, and I'm like, oh, that's right. If I'm gonna bother spending time with a teacher, I really should just learn what they're teaching.
That's what I try to do. I'm just like, hey, let's see this. Let's see if I can do it. Let's see if I can even. Well, I'm not against learning. I love it.
Oh, totally. Like
I'm willing to learn.
So I started Hoshin 2001. I didn't start studying Bujinkan until like 2003, 2004. And it had a few different teachers, and the time I got to spend with Ed Martin over the decade was awesome. But I've studied with Craig Guest since 2009. So it's been 12 years. And I love Craig because he's got this like underworld infamous reputation, in the Bujinkan where no one really knows anything about him. But he's been around for a long chunk of time. But and he runs this big school, but no one knows anything. I quite enjoy hearing, and then I go back and Craig and I have a drink and a laugh, and I'm like, oh my god, I heard this guy saying this, and he's like, what? But to Craig's credit, like I think after about 8 or 9 years training with him, he pulled me aside one day and he said, hey, I've got to ask, like, what are you doing with your back foot? And I was like, what are you talking about? He's like, that's not what I show you. That's not what I do. And I look down, I'm like, what are you talking about? It's like, I had a whole life of studying Hoshin with the foot angle forward 45 degrees. He's like, no, I'm back 45 degrees. And I felt this like awesome humiliation. But he was like, look, I saw it after the first 4 years. I gave you another 4 years to work it out. You didn't, so I thought I better say something. And I was like, funny. Thanks, man.
That's funny.
Thanks so much.
That's funny.
And then sure enough, I altered that. And then a whole bunch of stuff that he was showing was strangely easier,
It's much more easy.
Yeah, made so much more sense.
It's funny, little small things like that, but at least he was kind enough to tell you.
I know. Well, that's what I was like.
He just left you like that forever,
Yeah, I know. I got a good one. So let's roll back because I'm just aware of the time, and I'm chatting for about 45 minutes or so.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
So I'm aware of time. Maybe we'll wrap it up in the next 5 or 10 minutes.
All right.
But just wanted to chat about the current situation going on, around the world, and you're settled in presenting your videos, podcasts, getting the content out, especially while no one can travel to Japan at this point in time. What have you been in your own personal training? What have you been working on? Like, what is it? I find it like there's themes that come up for me every couple of years, and I'm like, whoa, I got to look at that. Has it been something that's been like an overarching theme?
I'm working on the Shuha Li right now.
Oh, okay, nice.
I'm working on the Li aspect of it.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Shuha Li is at it. expression in Japan where we say, shu is to mamoru, or to protect, or to stay true to something. And then ha is to kind of destroy it.
Break,
and then li is to separate from it. So, like in your training, you might learn a kata, and, you have to understand, you should understand that kata, like how it works, how it happens, where your feet are supposed to be, where your hands are, and you're supposed to practice that so it becomes like second nature, right? And then you start ha means to destroy it, to kind of break apart, right? So then maybe you look at that kata and you say, well, what if you fall while you're doing it or something? Or, what if you have a weapon in your hand? Or you just start to, put all these other variables in it, right? What if he attacks you not like that, but like this? And how would you use that kata? What if he had a weapon in his hand? How would you use that kata? So you sort of kind of mix it up a bit, right? What if it was the same kata, but from behind or from the side, And so you see how it might change, it doesn't even have to look like the same kata, actually. It's, sort of this kind of playing with it in all different angles and directions and things. So, and then li is to like, just leave everything behind and just go like into space, into like uncharted territory, right? And that's what I'm trying to do now is like my Japanese students who want me to do the channel, they're always asking me, what would you do if I did this? What would you do if I did this? And like, just say, okay, you come and do anything and let's see what happens. You know what I mean? To be able to, and to challenge myself to different to anything, right? To allow the art to try to move through, through me without any kind of preconceived response. And it's challenging, and you have to become vulnerable to that too, right? Like super vulnerable, right? You have to be like, okay, well, I could die here.
This might not work at all.
And to be okay with that. I'm 50, right? When Sensei was 50, he was still, exploring all this stuff too. So that's kind of where I am right now. I'll probably go through that again, like that whole thing, I'll go back to, okay, well, let me look at these katas, let me break them apart with my students, and then let's try to just forget everything. And naturally. And of course, I'm working on trying to get my students just to forget about martial arts.
Shizen Jitsu, like just
right. Because I have so many, new students now. I don't know why. And they're all Japanese in Yokohama, and they come in from these different arts, and they have all these things like, I gotta hold my hands like this, and I'm gonna stand like this, and I'm gonna do this, and I'm gonna do, and they do all these martial arts things, and I'm like, you gotta just forget about what you think martial arts is.
Be a human
and be human, right? And that's really hard, for them to understand, So I show them a kata once in a while, but not often.
Totally.
I just start moving naturally with them from the very beginning, because for me, that's how Sensei was when I got there. And that's how I learned, I understand the kata are very useful for certain stages of a person's training. I absolutely think they're invaluable, for absolute beginners. But I also don't want them to get the kata stuck in their head too much. I'd rather show them natural movement and then say, hey, look, it comes from this kata. So I like to go backwards a bit, because I've seen people go from the kata standpoint, and unfortunately they turn into these kind of robots of kata robots. And instead of freeing themselves up, they're just adding more and more of structure and bindings on themselves. And so I try not to start with a kata, so to speak, with the natural movement. And then I say, by the way, that's this kata here. If you want to do it like a kata, it'd be like this. And of course it doesn't work. So, because katas don't work. Exactly. Don't work. They're kata, they're form, right? And the uke has to play his part to a perfect T, and you have to play your part to a perfect T. So like if you're doing kata, your uke has to know the kata too, right? And if he doesn't know the kata, then it won't make the kata, right? It's going to be turned into something different. So
I've always liked the three levels of the Gogyo no kata, like the Sanshi no kata, for that. Being like, oh, I get it. I just have to, it's like fully commit to the textbook, fully commit to the attempted textbook and then fully commit to the reality. But like, in what's helped me was I can't remember who. This might have been Ed Martin who said this to me. One of his visits to Australia. He was like, at each one, you're just fully there. It's like you're fully committed. If you're doing, if you're out and you're just doing like as a form of qigong, you get up and you're there. And then if the next day you're fully committed to just breaking it apart, you're there and you're not busy worrying that you're not. And I like that. That was really helpful. Otherwise, I realized I'd spent time in each one thinking, oh, I should probably be in the other one. I should.
Yeah.
Should go back. He's like, screw it. Just less thinking, more just do something.
Be right there with your training. I mean, it takes so many different angles to really have a really kind of fruitful training, right? Doing the kata, breaking the kata down, playing, doing stupid stuff.
Yep, getting injured. That's why I've been so grateful. I was super blessed to just wander into Japan and meet yourself, Ricky, become good friends. even Joshua and Mon. And I remember having a chat, and I just love the way the whole universe revolves around and puts these people. It's all in perfection. Like I just laughed when I think the first visit, Josh and I just having dinner. And I mentioned, he's like, oh, so what did I see the Bujinkan, but there's something else in there. And I say, oh, you've never heard of this. Like, I guarantee you've never heard of this other art. So it's not even worth mentioning. And he's like, no. And I'm like, oh, it's Hoshi. And he's like, oh, yeah, I trained with Glenn up it. I was like, of course you did. Yeah. I mean, how could I have come anywhere else,
And they're still good friends. Ricky's over here once in a while. Joshua is messaging me and stuff, and they're really good friends.
I've been super grateful the community, and thanks so much for yourself. Like how much you've acted as like a center of that with the guest houses over the years, even now, interviews, podcasts.
Yeah, so we switched. All the guest houses are gone because of Corona. We've given them all up. They're gone away. Yeah. So now we just I hate to use that word pivoted, but we pivoted in a different direction. I hate that word pivot because that's like, you pivot to another direction. No, man, I'm going in all directions all the time, bro. I am exploding, so, I'm not pivoting one way or the other, man.
You just kind of, more of you fell in this way.
Like, I'm like uranium. Man. Just get near me. Like Sensei, he was like uranium. Just get near him and you get radiated, Doesn't matter if you were in front, behind, side, above, below. Yep. It's the same, I don't pivot anywhere. I'm just radiating. I'm floating in space. That's the deal.
That's awesome. I like that. That's super cool. Well, look, thanks so much for the podcast, Paul. Thanks for
no problem
for joining us the whole time.
And, everyone just take this with a grain of salt. I'm always saying stupid stuff, so
That's right. They've studied with me long enough.
Training methodologies.
Yeah.
And if you want, you come by and you join the circus over here. Sometimes you're having a good time.
Totally.
Always doing stuff.
I keep threatening to them. I'm like, hey, you guys should come with me to Japan next time.
You need to bring them over, man. They'll have a great time.
I know. They totally will.
The food, the culture, travel around a bit, see some things.
But it's that old thing. It's like, no, they can't come and train until they've met.
Are you telling your students they can't come to Japan? Damn.
I'm like, man, you should totally come to Japan. Some of them are like, yeah. I'll drag over a whole bunch of them next time.
They should, man. They'll have a great time. Eating ramen, gyoza, riding Shinkansens and going to see temples. Really, it's really a wonderland, Yeah. They should do it.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, that's awesome. Right. Thanks so much, Paul. Cool. We'll finish up the podcast. We'll have a chat afterwards and just wrap up. But to everyone at home, that was Paul Masse from Noda. Thanks so much, Paul, for joining us. And I hope you have an awesome rest of the week.
Straight out of Noda.
Yeah, that should be a t-shirt.
Everyone come and get your soy sauce. We got enough.
We do.
Cool. It was nice talking with you guys. I hope you find this interesting and have a great day. And, keep radiating.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Paul. We'll chat soon, man.
Right on.
Ciao.
Okay. Ciao.